Colin Corby. Digital detox. What do you know about it? A statistic recently published, people spend more time on their phone and on social media than they do sleeping. How do you feel about that? So Colin saw this problem. He got burnt out. He's in the tech industry. He's from the United Kingdom and started looking at other ways to divert his energy. Triathlons, still does them now, but now has entered this world and helping people with digital detox. When you hear that phrase, I wonder what you think. Fascinating background with Colin, how he got there, what he does now, how he approaches this and the methods in which he can help people who he won't help. I wonder if you think you need digital detox. Do you think you're addicted to your phone? He has some traits. I asked him, how does one know when they need it? I wonder what some answers would be. Do you look at your phone right before you go to sleep? Is it the first thing you look at in the morning? If you don't have it for a while, do you panic? Great conversation with Colin. His viewpoint on discipline, very interesting as well. Really appreciate my time talking to Colin. Thank you for watching and listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because I was working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How did I lose the weight? Just one word, discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission, how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision, growth through learning from others. In fact, I'd say you're the best and most qualified person to be yourself. Colin Corby, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Very excited to talk to you. What, out of the triathlon, out of the three, what was your favorite event?
So I'm a swimmer. Now, that's a bit of a problem in triathlon because the swim is incredibly short. Yes. So in an Ironman, it's only 2.4 miles. Now, that takes me about an hour and a few minutes. Wow. It's like a training session. However, cycling 112 miles up and down silly hills takes an awful lot longer, and running a marathon, which is actually for me a run, walk or crawl, does take longer.
In this fast-paced MSP landscape, how do you stay ahead? Introducing MSPinfluencer.com, your ultimate hub for MSP news, insights, and community connection powered by Forza Dash. More than 75,000 MSPs subscribe to our MSP Influencer Pulse weekly newsletter, staying informed and ahead of industry trends. Tune in to emerging podcasts from Joey Pinz and leading MSP voices, offering essential tips, powerful insights, and success stories. Explore our multi-authored blogs, crafted specifically for MSP leaders, delivering fresh perspectives and actionable strategies. Celebrate excellence with the industry-leading Forza Dash MSP Influencer Awards, recognizing innovation, leadership, and impact in the MSP community. Join thousands of MSP professionals who trust MSPinfluencer.com to grow their business and expand their networks. MSPinfluencer.com, where today's MSP leaders connect, collaborate, and conquer, all powered by the Forza Dash platform, helping MSP vendors work effectively with MSPs and helping MSPs grow. Run, walk, or crawl. Yeah. I've done a few triathlons, but only Olympic. So it was only a 0.9 mile swim, so it was a lot shorter. And I hired a swim coach and ended up loving the swim, tolerating the bike, and just hating the run.
Yeah, I think by the time you get to the run, it's not too bad. I do Olympic triathlons as normal.
Nice.
But they now have to be called standard because the Olympic is a brand name. But when I do it, it's in open water. And it's just under a mile. It's 1,500 meters. So it's just under a mile. Yep. And then it's 25 miles on the bike and 6 and a bit miles run. So yeah, I did one early on this year. I'd actually got injured, hadn't trained for a few weeks, and then went and did the Olympic distance triathlon. But I got round.
How long does it take you to do that swim?
So the swim was a bit rough. I think it was about 27, 28 minutes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it takes me a lot longer. I could swim. I feel I could swim forever, just not fast.
Well, in the Ironman, I used to laugh. If there were, let's say, a couple of thousand people doing it, I'd be in the top 200 people in the swim.
Ah.
And then most people would pass me on the bike, and the remaining people would pass me on the run.
And then, of course, when you're swimming, you're in with a bunch of people. You know, they're to do it purposely, but you kind of got to watch their feet, and you get kicked a
Oh,
bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, you basically to swim you need to warm up. So basically, I take a wide berth, keep myself out of trouble,
Me too.
and then once the muscles are warm, I reel everyone back.
Yeah, it's pretty much very very similar. I miss it. I wonder if I should return. It's nice to kind of practice and have a goal in mind. You still do them now?
Well, so the last one I did was 2014. So I've done 4 Ironmen. But I've been doing some distance swimming. So I swam last year. I swam end to end England's longest lakes. That's 11 miles.
Oof.
And that was a hard day in the office.
Yes.
That was a bit rough. You try not to drink the water, but I did, and I threw up a couple of times. So it took a little bit longer. It took 6 hours and 29 minutes, and I was hoping for 6 hours.
Wow.
But next year I'm swimming a smaller lake, and it's only 7.5 miles. But if it blows up, those lakes get a bit like the sea.
What do you mean blows up? You mean if there's a storm?
If there's any sort of wind, because they're such big expanses of water, they act like the sea really. The waves start to form, and it becomes character building.
Yes, character building. Yes. I heard a terrible statistic, Colin, that people spend more time on their phone and social media than they do sleeping.
Actually, I think that's true. The reason why I hesitated is because the stats on phone use tend to not include work.
Huh.
And those figures, I guess on average, most adults in the UK would be around about 5 hours-ish. But then, of course, if you're at work, and we're all at work, we all work online. So the total time online tends to be a ridiculously long period if we're not careful.
So digital detox, what you do is going to become more and more popular, more and more common to consider.
Yes. So I kicked off the Digital Detox Coach in 2018, and it was something I wanted to do, but I was ahead of the curve, to be honest. The other thing is, for most people, it's an inconvenience being on their phone all the time. It's quite comfortable. There's nothing desperate about it. But for some people who realize they're actually on their phone rather than with their children, or they're not able to concentrate on study, or as professionals, their performance isn't where they need it to be, then that time on your phone has a monetary value, has a consequence. And it's for people where it has a consequence that digital detox is really, really important. Otherwise, it's a bit like, we should have good diets, we should exercise more, we should get more sleep, all those things that we all know we should do. But, the stats say that most people don't.
That's very, because nutrition, exercise, sleep, these are kind of the pillars, but perhaps a digital hygiene and responsibility should be considered in those pillars as well.
Yeah, so that's where I focus. I focus on the fact that we all have to be online. We all have to work online. We all have to use technology in order to live in the modern world. But we're biological animals.
Yeah.
And as biological animals, there are things that we need to do for ourselves. So we need to achieve a balance. But in the early years, I found the self-care message really wasn't hitting the mark.
Hmm.
Particularly in macho industries and companies, it's a sign of weakness. Why can't you work all hours? Why can't you be available 24/7? Why can't you do this, that, and that? So over the last couple of years, I've switched it because of my technology background, my sport background. I said, would you want to turn up at work and just do a rubbish job? Or would you want to turn up and be your best? Because what I want to do is to tell you about being a business athlete. Now, athletes are very strong. I mean, for an athlete to perform their best, they have to be at the top of their game. So I use this idea of digital detox athletes. So we know athletes have to get enough sleep.
Yeah.
We know athletes have to have a good diet. They can't train all day. If they've got a big event coming up, they get a good night's sleep beforehand. They have a team of people around them to coach them. They've got a growth mindset. They take on board constructive criticism, how they can improve, and all of those things. And so I use that analogy for digital detox. If you don't want to turn up as your best, don't worry. But if you want to turn up as your best, you've got to get this sustainability. So instead of it being a weakness, self-care, I've tried to switch it to being an intuitive strength. And that's having a little bit more, it resonates a little bit more at the company and organizational level. And I like the idea because it allows me to talk about my swimming and triathlon and stuff like that.
Colin, your TEDx was terrific. It was great. And, but like you said, when was that? When did you film that?
Oh, that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That was, the thing was, my friend Anna Smith, she said, we need to do a TEDx. Yeah. I said, yeah, because I'm over in the UK. Yeah. And then she found one. She said, look, here's the thing. Can you put something together? So I put an outline, which is a bit, wacky and all the rest of it. She sanitized it and she entered it, and I thought nothing of it. And then around the September of the previous year, she said, we got in. I'm saying, what? Because, that means I'm going to have to travel to the States. Now, I've traveled to the States historically for work many times, in Canada and various other countries. But all of a sudden, we're going to have to travel to the States. But also, there's going to be two of us. And no one ever does a TEDx talk with two people because it's so hard to synchronize.
Yeah.
So my plan B was, okay, let's work on it. I don't think we'll both be able to do it, but let's get it in the right shape. And then you can do it because she's based in Houston. And it's a bit like I accidentally got into the London Marathon because if you apply and you don't always get in. And I'd applied once and I got a great jacket because if you donate the money to travel, you've got a great jacket. And so I applied again because I needed a new jacket. I had no intention of running the marathon and I got in. So here's the situation. And as we worked on it, it dawned on me that we could do a TEDx talk together. We could get it to work because you have to memorize everything. And I'm okay on memorizing. I've learned how to do that over the last 12 to 15 years. And there are techniques for doing it. And it seemed like we could do it. And we had some good coaching from the University of Lake Superior State University. And so I ended up going to America. But this time going to America, it's digital visas. I had to go to Canada because it's on Lake Superior. So it's easier going to Canada and then coming across. The US is the only country in the world that's got my fingerprints because you're not allowed to take them in the UK if you're not a criminal. And then we did it. And then the first time I physically met Anna was the day after I arrived because we'd been working remotely. And then we practiced. And I said to Anna, look, if you forget anything, because we're all mic'd up, just turn and smile. I've learned the whole thing. And so we did one dry run, and then it was the live. I started it off because that sort of settles everyone's nerves. And she was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. In fact, she was so good that towards the end, the thought went into her mind to say, wow, Colin's going to be so impressed. And as soon as that happened, she couldn't get the next bit. So she turned and smiled. And I filled in the next bit, and then she carried on. So, and people say, hey, that was well rehearsed. So yeah, the TEDx is, but where I was going to get to was we conceived the TEDx before the launch of ChatGPT. It was done after ChatGPT, but I'm a technologist. I've been following all the developments in AI for the last 10 years or so. So it's quite easy to incorporate where it was going to go. And I think the talk still resonates particularly well now because a lot of the things are already here.
You worked at some very big tech firms. How did you arrive? Did you need digital detox? Did you get burned out? How did you arrive here?
So
Colin.
I worked for British Telecom International in the boom years. And so when I started as an apprentice, and then I got rapid promotion. I also got offered a place at university, but it didn't pay so well. And so I worked on analog international cable links, analog satellite, analog speech processing. And I worked on the switch when it just became digital. So it's incredibly exciting. And we went from 9.6 kilobit modems, I don't know if you remember those.
I do.
To fully digital channels across the States on the first transatlantic cable system and the first digital satellite links. And it's ever so exciting. And I was so excited, and I was working with great people, and I was working all hours, and I suffered stress. And I didn't know it was stress. Nobody talked about it. So what was happening is my heart rate started to go up and up and up and up, which is one of the consequences of stress, until I saw stars. And I started to pass out a couple of times at work. So I had all the tests, but there's something deeper. When I was 6, I was playing, and a teenage boy threw this large piece of stone, and it landed on my head. So my skull was broken. Whoa. They picked the bones out, and they said, "You're only 6, so the thing will grow over." So I've always had that worry in the back of my head about, was there something there? Because technology wasn't that good in those days. So, but after all the tests and nothing showed up, I thought, well, what is it I can do? And that's when I remember being a good swimmer. I said, well, if it's about the heart and the heart rate and resilience, let's do some swimming. I swam a couple of lengths in the pool, and I was wrecked, absolutely wrecked, because I was so unfit. So for me, it was a tipping point. I had to do something. I had a mortgage, I had a young family, I had to do the job, I had to do all those things. Anyway, so I started swimming, started to get fitter, the heart got fitter, my resilience to stress got much better. I took lessons to learn all the strokes. This is in my mid-30s. I started racing. I joined a triathlon club because they said that all I had to do was swimming. They lied. I started triathlon. And that whole process was a wonderful way of thinking, the mind and body are connected. How we think changes what we can do. And if we change the way we think, we can extend and do loads of things. And I was quite happy. I got that balance. Career was fine. No problems with stress. I was even raced off the blocks at the European Masters Championships. Not because I was any good, but I made the qualification time, so it was in the UK, and I thought that would be great. And then around about 2010, 2015, after the launch of the iPhone 2007, I was spending loads of time online. And I was struggling to keep fit, spend the time to keep fit. And I thought, no, I've got to do that to balance off the stress. So what's going on here? And I did loads of research on behavioral psychology. What is it about the apps? What is it about the phones that are so I'm going to use the word addictive, but I mean that in the common sense, not in a medical sense. Why is it such a great pull for us? And I had an opportunity of leaving the corporate world. And in 2018, I thought, hey, love technology, love the psychology of sport. And if I spend too much time on my phone, it must affect everybody else. So I launched the Digital Detox Coach to try and, if you like, self-experiment and see what's going on here and deliver that message to other people who might find themselves in similar positions. It's a vocation. You have to understand that I'm now 66.
You look great.
So when you get to a certain age in the corporate world, you can do lots of consultancy, but you can't get employed. It doesn't matter how good you are. So I did loads of consultancy, and I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to do something I really enjoy now. So I've been doing this since 2018.
How does one know when they need digital detox?
Well, I've just put together 10 signs why you might need a digital detox, and there's some funny ones. So if you get anxious, if you don't have your phone with you, and if you think, where's my phone? Where's my phone? I can't go out without my phone. Where is it? If you get that sort of level of anxiety, then perhaps it's got a bit of a hold over you, too much of a hold. If you are on your phone last thing at night, and then the first thing you pick up in the morning is your phone, then again, perhaps that's got too much of a hold. If you go for a meal with your family or friends, and you spend half your time on your phone instead of with your family and friends, being present with them, then perhaps you should think about a digital detox. So there's lots of little signs that say, well, you know what, we've actually developed a lots of bad digital habits, and we've done it because for years and years and years we've been doing the same actions, and that's how habits are formed. And we don't mind them because instant gratification, lots of shiny apps, lots of entertainment, but we've developed these unconscious habits. So a digital detox is about breaking those habits. But just imagine, I mean, I love chocolate. And if I'm in a sweet shop, I will be tempted to have some chocolate, and I might finish up the whole bar. If I'm not in the sweet shop, and if I'm somewhere else, I don't have those triggers, and I won't be thinking about chocolate. So digital detox is really your digital habit off switch. It gets you out of the sweet shop. And so when you're out of the shoots, when you're in the sweet shop, bombarded with lots of stimulation, you don't get time to think. So you're replying to that notification, you're doing that thing. It encourages us to switch tasks all the time. So we don't get a chance to really think. When you're out of the switch on, then you get a chance to think, what was it I was going to do today? Who was I going to speak to? What was I going to do? What do I need to do? Where am I going? So it becomes more long-term rather than being in online. I do describe being online like being in a room, and all these apps are like people, and they're just shouting at you, come over here, I've got some exciting notifications for you, come over here, this is a great app. And it's that sort of thing, and we're being bombarded. So yeah, digital detox getting out the online sweet shop, really.
Wow. Now, Colin, you and I are similar generation. We remember a time when the phones weren't around. You mentioned it came out in 2007. You know, our formidable years did not have this distraction. But the youth today, my daughters are in their early 20s, and I would say to one of them, "Did you talk to your sister today?" And she'd say, "Oh yeah, I did." And I said, "Well, I mean, did you talk like we're talking now?" And say, "Oh," she said, "No, no, no. I direct
Yeah,
message." So it's just the actual vernacular has changed. So for those where they were born into it and it's part of their life, it'd be harder or more difficult, I would think, to separate.
it is because when we're social animals, and if we're not connected with other people, then that causes us stress. And I think the US Surgeon General had that loneliness report a couple of years ago. And he said we're the most connected people in the world, but uh, there's a loneliness epidemic. And fundamentally, it's connection online, absolutely fantastic. During the pandemic, it was a lifesaver. But it shouldn't be in place of, it's a facsimile of
Mm.
real connection compared to face connections.
Hmm.
Now, the problem with face to face connections is if I'm physically with you, then every time you say something, I'm automatically saying, well, okay, he said something. What does the words mean? What does the facial expression mean? What's the tonal position? How's the body position? There's so much going on. And I don't know what you're going to say next. And for younger people, the preference is safety. If I can send a text, then I can say what I want to say. It's gone off.
Right.
I don't have to worry. Now, I know with my own daughter, she much prefers someone sending an email than phoning up. Um, so those social
Hmm.
skills, which are really hard, tend to be missing or tend to be reduced in the younger generation because it's much easier just sending a text message.
Mm-hmm.
But it does have consequences in terms of connection, real connection with other people. And those real connections are what we've evolved to need. It's a safety thing. So not having those connections increases stress. So it's one of the many factors that might be affecting more mental illness or mental health issues in younger people.
What if discipline wasn't about punishment, but about unlocking your best self? I spent 2.5 years writing Discipline for Greatness because discipline changed my life. And I know it can change yours too. This isn't theory. Inside, you'll find real, practical steps you can use immediately to focus better, build stronger habits, reduce stress, accomplish your goals, and bring more balance to your life. Whether you're trying to get healthier, improve your career, or simply feel more control, this book gives you the framework. Start today. Grab your copy of Discipline for Greatness at joeypinz.com/book. Thank you. You know, an interesting thing that's happened. So I'm in the tech field as well, and after COVID, after all these, the way we digitally connect, events have never been more popular than they are right now. There's just so people still want to physically. I just returned from one this week where there was 25,000 attendees in Las Vegas. So there's definitely, it seems to me, some kind of pushback. Still, people want the physical connection and interaction. Do you
Uh,
agree?
yes, I agree. And I think there's some similarities. So I'm sure the US is the same. In the UK, non alcoholic beer has really taken off.
Interesting.
And and it took off with the younger generation. Now, they might have thought, look at all those older guys having too much alcohol and acting silly. But it was driven by the younger generation. And they taste pretty good from all of the different brewers. And it's much more convenient if you're driving or if you've
Right.
got something important to do the next day. So there is a sort of a groundswell of younger people saying, well, do I need to have my phone? And can I be with other people in a no phones cafe
Hmm.
or a no phones event? And so there's a lot of press reports in the US and the UK about phones in schools. And I think gradually phones are going to be removed from schools
Yes.
because we don't have to wait for the science on that one. I think we know. I think we know on that one. So I've got a hope that there is some correction amongst some groups of younger people, because if you are physically with somebody and you are sharing a joint experience, if you're sharing a joke, if you're just laughing for no apparent reason, all of those things are just so much deeper and better experiences compared to the online ones.
Hmm. So let's assume somebody they've come to the realization, I've got an issue, I need this digital detox. How do you work with them? How does your program work?
So everybody comes to that point differently.
Mm.
So everyone's pain is slightly different, whether it's a professional pain or a parent's pain or whatever. And so there are two types of ways of working. Some people like the way of working as if they're going to go to the gym. I need to get fit, give me a program. Just tell me what I need to do and I'll go and do it, just like I go down the gym. So there's a program, I do some programs, a 5-day digital detox hit, or a longer program, which I call Couch to 5K, because this is a popular free running event where you get off the couch and you learn how to run a 5K, which is started in the UK, is in the US and elsewhere in the world as well. And then it's a sequence of 9 weeks of taking on different challenges. The challenges tend to be a little bit bespoke to suit the individual. So there's that type of program. And then there's the proper coaching, which is where you have coaching sessions and you enable the person to realize themselves, to work out themselves what it is that they value the most, what it is that they really want to do. And then you build on that realization to the point where they know themselves where they want to be. They've visualized who they want to be in 6 months' time, how they want to, what the relationship is with their technology. And then you have an action program where they suggest what actions they will take to achieve that. So that's where the coach is not acting as the instructor or mentor. It's where the coach is acting as a facilitator to enable the person. And that's the deeper form of coaching. The thing is that habits take on average, let's say something like 66 days, maybe more if they're more complicated, maybe less. And that was a study from Professor Wendy Wood. So the first thing is to explain to people, you might have instant gratification online, but if you want to change your habits, it's a bit like running a marathon. On day one, you're not going to be able to do it. Lots and lots of small steps over a long period of time. So getting that realization that everything in the real world is going to be hard work and discipline, which is tough. And you're going to have to be disciplined, but you need some tricks. And so willpower is never quite enough. So you need tricks. So you need to use environments. So you get out of an environment that triggers certain behaviors. You work with your body rhythms. You stop multitasking because actually the brain can't really multitask. It just switches tasks really quickly. And you start relearning how to apply your focus and attention again, and you declutter. You declutter your digital life. You declutter your life because less is more when you're trying to achieve things.
Who won't you work with, Colin? Who's a bad candidate for this?
So I work with people that have bad habits
Ah,
who want to go forward. I'm not a medical professional. So if somebody has some genuine medical issues, then I have to say you do need to seek the advice of a medical
I
professional.
see.
So I work with people with bad habits who want to, change the way their life pans out. And those sorts of people have all the controls they need. It's just a question of, do they really want to do it, and have they got the discipline?
Hmm. If just indulge me for a moment, Colin. So, I mean, if technology were to disappear, if we would have a brownout in 48 hours of the of the internet, of the technology, what do you think people would learn about themselves?
I think that's an interesting question. And the last brownout that we had was in Spain and Portugal when their electricity network
Hmm.
failed. It was a sequence of events, and it failed. And very soon, the batteries ran out on their mobile phones. They couldn't make any calls. Interestingly, they couldn't spend any money. They couldn't do just
Wow.
about everything. And they learned that actually we have a digital world. We have technology to make life easier, but we haven't built in enough resilience, both at the structural level and at our own individual level.
Hmm.
So if we don't have any electricity in our homes, we could go to bed earlier, particularly in the winter in the UK, or we could have some candles. What is it that we do? So a lot of people were left saying, what do I do now? Because everything was collapsing around them for a short period of time. Now, I hope authorities in all of certainly the Western countries, took note and thought, okay, so what is it we have to be able to do if all this happens again? And it will, because complex systems, even if they're not interfered with, will go wrong. Coming back to your question, what do we learn? We learn that actually we've become totally dependent on our technology,
Yeah.
and our ability to do anything vanishes overnight if we're not ready for it. So, how can we be more resilient? Well, the only way you can be more resilient is to go offline, go off grid even, and then practice in a nice environment, on a holiday or something like that. Well, what is it we will do? What's it we'll do together? What's it we can do without technology? How can we live without technology? Heaven forbid, how can we cook using vegetables and real food again instead of buying it in and buying takeaways because it's so easy? So it's that resilience. I think we should all be more resilient and practice being resilient. Now, of course, the networks tend not to fail very often, so we'll forget about it probably.
It is interesting. It is interesting how. Are there any particular personal habits that you have that you find tough to break digitally?
Oh, I've had all of them. I started off with, I'm not going to use my phone now before going to sleep. No problem. But I still had it on by my bedside. So when I switched the alarm off in the morning, I was just so tempted to check the weather. I used to convince myself, I'm in England, we always check the weather.
Yeah.
Which of course we do, but then of course you check other things. So then I got another alarm clock and I moved the phone into another room upstairs. But that wasn't far enough away, really. So it's ended up downstairs. it's a hell of a journey to get to my
I see.
phone. So that's one. The other is the work boundaries. It can be very tricky. So when do you start work? When do you stop work? Especially if you're really interested in what you're doing and you're working for yourself and you're in a small business. This idea that you stop work when you need to do other things, because that's when your unconscious mulls over all the problems of the day and comes up with the best ideas. So getting the boundaries right. Now, luckily, I train a lot. And you can't have a phone in the swimming pool. That's certainly true.
Not yet.
And although I have a phone when I do a run, all it says is, you ran the last mile in this time and your heart rate was this. and my cycle's in the garage and I watch a video of the Lake District Hills or somewhere in Europe and it adjusts all the resistance for me. So technology is the escape. And also, if you're with other people, the discipline of being fully present, that's taken a bit of practice. Even if the other people pick up their phones, the fact that you just sit there calmly and wait for them to come back and they say to them, was that really important? And of course it isn't. And then they realize what they've done.
It is quite a phenomenon. How it's really just become part. There's an artist out there that takes pictures of people looking at their cell phone and then he removes the cell phone, so it looks like they're looking at their hand, and it's ridiculous. Of course,
yes. And I've seen some of those, and I've seen lots and lots of people years ago. If you walk down the road talking to yourself in an unusual way, people might think that, perhaps you need a little bit of help somewhere in the medical front. And now it's very, very common.
It's common.
When kids go to school, it's like a procession and they're walking with their mates and they're all doing it. Yeah, it's great for comedy though. You could create so much comedy over what we're doing. There is a worry though now, because AI is commonplace and it's getting better.
Yeah.
It does some of the thinking for us. So now we're offloading a lot of our thinking to AI, and that's making us less able to think for ourselves. I mean, if you wanted to farm human beings but keep them happy, you'd create a system very similar to what we've got with smartphones and technology and AI.
Colin, has there been anything in the last month or so that you've changed your mind on?
Not with technology, but I've played with the idea and I haven't done it yet. I do a monthly Substack thing where I take a subject, talk about various aspects of human biology, nature, or focus and attention and those sorts of things. And then I come up with some challenges. And so the challenge that I'd love to get out there, and I haven't found a good way of doing it. So many people take their phones with them to the restroom. And I was toying with the idea of, actually, could I create this restroom challenge where you don't take your phone to the restroom? And I haven't found the right way, the right words yet of creating it. But I've done that myself. Taking the phone to a restroom. Most people have. And then when you don't do it, which I stopped doing that some time ago, it's a different experience. And the part of the experience which is different is you get to be with your own thoughts again. It's a bit like the shower. Lots of people have their most creative thoughts when they're in the shower because they don't have their phones with them. You can have creative thoughts when you're in the restroom. But I haven't worked exactly how I'm going to put it together yet. But so this is the first announcement of the restroom challenge.
I'll take it one. I'm in a lot of airports. I travel a lot, and I see this way too often. But a man leaning against the urinal, urinating with one hand on the phone.
Oh no!
Oh,
Oh
you haven't seen
no!
it?
I haven't. No, that's
Oh,
terrible.
yes, yes, horrible,
That
absolutely
is.
horrible.
Yeah, that is horrible. But there's that terrible statistic, certainly in the UK, it may also be true in the US, where pubs, we have lots of pubs, they put peanuts on the bar. Well, it's a well known fact that men's hygiene, which is washing hands after, is not as good as women's. And so when I look at a bowl of peanuts on the bar,
Uh-oh.
I don't fancy them anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I could definitely see that. Yeah. Has there been something that you believed in, let's say 10 years ago, strongly believed in, Colin, that you don't believe anymore?
I I got caught up in this idea that as you got older, then the body just wasn't up to doing as much.
Mm,
The mind wasn't up to doing as much. Now, that's the culture because if you work for a company, unless you're the CEO, um, over 50, you should be thinking about retirement, this whole idea of retirement. But actually, the science doesn't really say that.
hmm,
The science says that if you live a healthy lifestyle, if you exercise both your body and your mind, then the decline is actually quite slow.
hmm.
And so I've turned it on its head. I now think, well, you can do so much as you get older. And I lunched with a school friend of mine, and at school, my friend was the football captain, the cricket captain, super fit, played semi-professional football, and we go for a lunch a couple of times a year. And when he gets up the table from the table, he goes, "Oh, my back! Oh, my
Mm.
knees!" And I said in the challenge, I said, "Look, you're younger than me. I challenge you not to make those sounds when you
Mm.
get up, because you're confirming
Hmm.
a cultural bias."
Hmm.
So yeah, age is a cultural bias that isn't based properly in science in terms of the immediate effect. I mean, if I'm lucky, and you have to be lucky to have good health in some respects, I hope to be racing in my 80s.
Wow.
A friend of mine is already
Nice.
racing in his 80s, so
Nice.
there's no issue with that.
No, no, science and technology is also, it can also be very, very wonderful, and it is. So you mentioned discipline before. So I started my firm back in the 90s, and I was working way too hard, Colin, and wasn't, I'm an athlete all my life, like yourself, and these long hours and putting nutrition and exercise in the back seat, and I'm in front of the doctor, and she tells me that I knew I had gained weight, but she tells me I'm at 340 pounds, which is about 160, excuse me, about 150 kilograms, and and I didn't know I was that heavy. And she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter was just born.
Mm,
So it scared the life out of me, right? So it I drive home. I'm angry. I'm punching the steering wheel. I could do everything I want to myself, Colin, but I'm much bigger than myself now. It's a family. So I spent the next 6 7 months, lost about 130 pounds, about 60 kilograms, and when I tell people that, and I kept it off, by the way, you can't look at these things as finishing lines, right? These are
mm,
lifelong changes. There's too many temporary kind of solutions. And when I tell people this, first thing, what's your secret? And there's no secret, Colin. I always say discipline. You mentioned it before:
Mm.
motivation, willpower, focus, routine. How does discipline play a role in your life, Colin?
So I have the discipline to train.
Mm,
I've created habits.
mm,
So I said willpower is not enough. So you have friends. So a friend is environment. Friends, habits can be your best friends. So I have the discipline of getting up in the morning and training
mm,
because it's a habit. I didn't like running. And then I created the habit of running on Saturday mornings. And I never thought about it. After the 3 or 4 months, I never had to think about it again. So use habits to help you. So use these things to help you. But you must want to do it. You had a tipping point. I had a tipping point. We
mm,
were lucky that we had our tipping points when we were young enough to do something about it. The saddest thing is if you get to a point where you have a tipping point, but you can't do something about it. The illness, the problem has gone too far. So we were lucky. And then when you have a tipping point, the discipline is actually much easier afterwards. If you don't have a tipping point, then what I like to do is work on visualization with the person and to see what is it, how do they visualize themselves? Who do they think they are? Who do they want to be? And visualization is a wonderful technique
mm,
because it basically creates memories. And then because you're not yet that person that you want to be, because it's a memory, it's almost like you've lost something. And there's a lot of research to say loss aversion is much, much more powerful than any gain that you might have. I think there might be a 3-to-1 difference
mm.
between those things. So you create the loss through visualization. And then with individuals, you have accountability. What is it? What are the small successes? Every small step along the way, and you build on small steps. But the person has to want to do it. They have to have some pain.
Hmm.
Otherwise, otherwise it goes the same way as New Year's resolutions for most people.
Have you always had this?
No, in fact, I acquire more skills and knowledge and discipline as I've got older.
Mm,
So, for example, I know the benefit of connecting with other people, but when I was young, and bearing in mind there were no phones, I was quite shy. I wouldn't say boo to a goose. But now I'm a dog walker. I say hello to all other dog walkers.
oh.
I'm a runner. I say hello to all other runners. You do these sorts of things, and I can talk to anyone. And it worries my daughter, who I swim train with, because I just start a conversation. Whereas it's something I've learned. So if I was to tell my younger self, what are the skills that you really ought to learn? That would be go outside your comfort zone and speak to people,
Mm.
try stuff, learn by doing, learn by lots of mistakes.
Colin, is there a question you wish more people would ask you?
That's a good one. I think the question that more people should ask me is, have I got the resources to do something? Because one of the downsides of the online world is that we feel we're out of control and everything's so complicated and we can't do anything unless we've signed up to this technology or that technology. And so this feeling of having no control, no autonomy. And I think I'd love people to say, well, do you think I've got enough control, things I can control to make a change? And I'd love to then say, yes, you have. You've got everything you need.
What motivates you, Colin?
That's a good guy. I love to buck the trend. I've got this
Buck the
vision.
trend.
Buck the trend, yes. I've got this vision of, in another 10 years or so, doing another TEDx talk. And the TEDx talk was saying, what they told you about age was a lie. Because you can do this, that, and the other. And by the way, I've just done it. And if I can do it and you're only 40 or 50, then where's your excuse? And the power of being a role model, I think, is a strong one. I swim with a swimming club, and there are swimmers there in their 80s, and they still race. I've trained with a triathlon club, and there are people who made the Great Britain squad, Masters squad, in their 80s. Or they've cycled from Scotland to Cornwall in England when they were well into their 70s. So everybody can do all of these things. It's just that what they're choosing to read, what they're choosing to engage with, is still biased to the, I suppose, 1950s, where people had manual jobs. And for ordinary people, their bodies would be quite worn out. And so they'd retire, maybe 60, 65, and they'd have a few years. But that's not the case now. Life expectancy certainly in the UK is 77 to 79, but more and more people live over to 100. So if you're going to live to 100, that's a lot of years. You might as well keep yourself fit and do some exciting stuff.
Right. Fascinating. You're motivated by kind of impact and by, let's you say, bucking the trend, reversing the stereotype. So how do you measure success given those motivations?
I measure success by each year, have I done something new? Have I done something outside my comfort zone? It could be a sporting activity. It could be a personal activity like public speaking. It could be anything that I haven't done before. That in my younger self would have said, "Whoa, don't go down there. That's too risky. Things could go wrong." So every year I think about what is it I'm going to do next year that challenges me, that keeps me growing. The reason behind that, of course, is that a lot of very fit people, how long you live may be out of your hands. Lots of reasons why you may pass away. But if you look after yourself, the quality of the years that you have are much better. And so I quite fancy actually popping off in a race, but I'd love to get over the finishing line first.
Want to show your love for discipline, inspiration, and the Joey Pinz podcast? Now's your chance. Introducing the brand new Joey Pinz merch store, where style meets discipline. Choose from premium apparel, cozy hoodies, stylish hats, durable bags, and your new favorite coffee mug, all featuring the iconic Joey Pinz logo. Perfect for podcast fans, discipline enthusiasts, or as unique gifts for friends and family. Every purchase supports the Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations podcast, helping us continue to inspire greatness and promote positive change. Visit joeypinz.com/store today and wear your discipline proudly. Joey Pinz merch. Wear it, share it, and live it. Yeah, you certainly would. Colin, great pleasure talking to you. It's a fascinating area. We're going to have to come to the realization that we're going to need, this type of service, this, at least the discussion, certainly. I enjoy what you're doing. I love the idea that you saw an issue, you helped yourself, and now you're helping others. I think that's the trait of a remarkable individual of which you are. Thanks so much for your time. If anybody watching or listening, how can they get in touch with you?
So this is the point I laugh because I say we have to be online to
Ha!
to live and work in the modern world. So I'm going to say the website, which is the
Right.
digitaldetoxcoach.com. And I do have a monthly Substack article. So if you look at up Substack, it's free. It's a free. There are other free resources. But my dilemma of having to work online is I mustn't become part of the problem.
Mm.
So a lot of people in the wellness space are part of the problem because they post all the time. They're always interacting. They're creating digital noise. And I'm thinking, well, I can't do that because I'm saying, don't do that. Come offline and do something much more interesting. So I have to balance that. People can directly message me with any question. I'd love to hear lots of questions. There are areas that I may not have thought about, and that allows me to think about it and offer
Mm.
some advice. And of course, if you want coaching, then I'm available for coaching, workshops, and hopefully they'll all be fun.
The Digital Detox Coach.com. You're on LinkedIn, you're on YouTube, like you say, Substack, Facebook, Instagram, Linktree, and of course, X. Colin, thank you so much for your time. Next time I'm in your neighborhood there in the great UK, perhaps we'll get a cup of tea.
Absolutely. I'm not far away from London, so I think
Ah,
most people end up in London. So if you're in London, let me know. I'll come in and we'll have tea and coffee and cakes, perhaps.
very good, very well. Thanks so much for your time. You be well. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.